Kia ora, g'day, welcome back here with another paid reaction. This time, this one's called The Story from Fallujah, covered up by the US. And there's also an article to go along with this. So let's jump in.
Watch out, let me get a shot. Where they at? Where they at?
There were a number of journalists embedded with the US Marines as they embarked on the battle for Fallujah in November of last year. One of those reporters was Kevin Seitz from the American network NBC.
This morning, the Marines seemed to come into the city unopposed.
Kevin has spent nearly 10 months as an embedded journalist in Iraq, but he'd never before captured anything like this.
Yeah, he's breathing. He's faking, he's fucking dead. Yeah, he just
I had a pit in my stomach. I didn't feel like this was great footage. I knew exactly what it was. It was something that has been captured on camera very few times in war.
What's he to?
Reports of a Marine shooting an unarmed wounded combatant quickly flashed around the world.
Exclusive first-hand account of what happened inside that mosque.
That didn't look like he was shooting an unarmed wounded combatant. Like, it's missing all the context. This Kevin Seitz should know better. I never worked with Kevin Seitz, looked after some NBC journalists, mostly Richard Engel, but well, not just myself, with other members of the team, obviously. But that guy, Kevin Seitz, and this is what media does too, though. So I have a bit of an understanding, having worked firsthand with some media, and I won't name any other names in terms of some of the stuff that they do with regards to their reporting. But he's missed a whole bunch of context there. As I look at that footage, it looks like a part of a standard sort of battlefield clearance, dare I say. And rather than shifting and moving the body with your hands and not having your weapon trained on the person who's potentially still a threat, who may be playing possum, and then moving them in the next minute getting shot because they want to go out and try to get one last person, he's putting rounds into the person to make sure that they are dead, that nothing like that is going to happen. That's my take as I look at it anyway. There's a whole bunch of context that's missed out. You saw some of the fighting at the guys, some of the chaos. You could hear guys yelling, where's it coming from? Where are they coming from? Repeatedly. And then they're assaulting. So he's got bits and pieces, and then he's just spliced this piece to just show this part. Kevin Seitz, never worked with him. Thankfully I didn't. But that seems like he's not showing, or they're not delivering the full context or the picture of those particular scenes.
At the time, most Western audiences didn't even get to see the shooting. For instance, NBC only showed this black and white still. But with Kevin's raw footage and his eyewitness account...
Well, that guy definitely looks like he's still alive, like moving around.
Dateline can now reveal the full story behind the incident. It had all begun the day before the shooting. Kevin had been at that same mosque with a unit of the 3rd Battalion, 1st Marine Division. As the US troops fought their way into the mosque on that Friday, they had killed 10 out of 15 suspected insurgents.
Yeah, we gotta fucking put 2 in each bag.
5 wounded men remained. They were disarmed and treated by Marine medics.
Okay, so there's part of that. So this is good. This is giving some context now. Same mosque, they've gone in. If you're wondering why you can't see the weapons, well, part of the clearance and the drills that I assume these soldiers would have done would have been to remove any weapons that were next to those people that they were fighting against, so that, for obvious reasons, somebody who might, again, be pretending doesn't make a last-ditch effort to grab a weapon and try to spray and pray and take and hit as many coalition forces, in this case US forces, as they could before they go out.
Their wounds didn't seem to be life-threatening. They were serious, but not life-threatening. And I asked the lieutenant colonel, what will be done with these men? Will they be evacuated? And he said, yes, they will. So we left that mosque. The men were still alive. Apparently, they were left unguarded but without weapons or anything, and the Marines advanced forward, moving south from the city.
Well, where's the lieutenant? So all we're hearing is one mainstream media perspective sharing this story. Again, probably I'd say going forward, military should probably be very mindful, if they aren't already, before agreeing to allow mainstream media going out on jobs with them. Not because soldiers are going to be looking to do something bad or wrong. That's not my rationale for it. It's because it seems like media, how many good stories do we see mainstream media post about the work that soldiers have done? How many good news stories do we share where the media talks about and shows the bravery that men showed, or that people, combatants showed, like the coalition forces and that sort of thing, showed on the battlefield? It's only if something extraordinary like Mark Donaldson, Daniel Kieran, Ben Robert-Smith, rest in peace Cameron Beard, Matty Locke, MG, etc., and Cameron Beard, obviously in that MGVC discussion as well, or not discussion, recipients, I should say, that you then hear about some of that stuff. But there is heaps of stuff that happens constantly, day in, day out, of good things that the operators and soldiers do. How come the media don't show any of the hearts and minds stuff whereby the soldiers go out trying to earn the trust of locals, showing the work, sometimes labouring type work to help those local communities in those areas? The media don't show any of that. They seem to just be hell-bent on wanting to make a name for themselves on the front line of journalism, and then looking to do what appears to me, what this Kevin Seitz appears to be doing, just sort of trying to puff his own chest and showing that he's on some sort of moral high ground. It would be interesting if he brings in this lieutenant that he says that he's spoken to, or soldiers. Are there any soldiers from there that want to cover their face and sit in the shadows, or that want to show their face and speak to what they saw, what they did, what actually happened on the ground, versus this mainstream media guy who said he asked the colonel, said they were going to be taken, so he left the mosque and wasn't there, I assume, but we'll see.
The next morning, on the Saturday, Kevin and the Marines returned to that mosque after reports of fresh fire from the area. When Kevin was still outside the mosque, he heard shooting.
Yeah, they're on the far right. Coming around the back.
We heard gunshots outside the mosque before we went in. And to my ear, I'm pretty familiar with what an M16 sounds like. They were single M16 gunshots, and there were 3 of them. It sounded like someone was being fired upon, and then moving over, firing again, and then firing again.
That's your assumption. You didn't see it so far. Like, he may have footage which may completely contradict that. You notice how they started off at the start of this clip or footage, near the start, with a soldier putting rounds into, like I described, likely a dead combatant, to make sure that they are actually dead, so that they don't get hit from the side, or dare I say from behind, if they turn their back looking to do the rest of their battlefield clearance, so to speak.
Kevin overheard the following exchange between the platoon commander and his troops before they went inside.
You shoot him? Yeah.
He comes up to the squad that had been inside the mosque, and he says, "Are there people inside there?" And the Marine that had been inside holds up 5 fingers, signaling 5 people inside. Then the lieutenant asks, "Did you shoot them?" And the Marine says, "Roger that, sir." And then the lieutenant asks, "Were they armed?" And the Marine just shrugs his shoulders.
Well, I didn't see that part. We're taking the mainstream media guy Kevin Seitz words for it, in terms of what he's just described there. I did hear some part of it. Did you shoot him? I heard that part. I don't know, and I didn't see any shoulder shrugging. Let's just go back and have a look.
Overheard the following exchange between the platoon commander and his troops before they went inside.
You shoot him? Yeah.
He comes up to the squad that...
I heard him say, yeah. I didn't hear him say, or I didn't see him go shrug his shoulders. Let's just see what this Kevin Seitz says again.
Mosque, and he says, "Are there people inside there?" And the Marine that had been inside holds up 5 fingers, signaling 5 people inside. Then the lieutenant asks, "Did you shoot them?" And the Marine says, "Roger that, sir." And then the lieutenant asks, "Were they armed?" And the Marine just shrugs his shoulders.
Oh, okay. So he does acknowledge that the soldier says, "Roger that, sir," or basically, yes, he did shoot them. And then he's saying that he shrugged his shoulders when the commander asks him, were they armed? Didn't see that part. Like, I didn't see it in this footage. Again, we're taking this guy, Kevin Seitz, at his word in terms of what he's saying. So, I did hear that. Are they the guys from yesterday?
All right. These are the ones from yesterday. That's really good.
Okay, and now we're hearing these are the ones from yesterday. Let's just go back slowly.
Same guys from yesterday? See? All right. These are the ones from yesterday.
That's really good. These are the wounded that they never picked up.
When I walked into that room, I immediately
I think I did just hear these are the wounded they never picked up or something. That's what it sounded like anyway. I could be wrong.
knew that these men that had just been shot again were the same wounded insurgents from Friday, from the day before.
So apart from the shooting Kevin captured on camera, he believes these other unarmed wounded men were also shot that day. This was largely ignored by the media at the time.
When we look at the evidence that these men were definitely shot again, freshly shot, after having been wounded the day before. And then one is actually killed point blank in front of my camera.
After capturing that image, Kevin discovers that this man is still alive.
What happened? No, I know. No.
صوبت هناك وتكلمت مع
Look at this. Please, please. I spoke with you who are filming. These people are smart. The insurgents are smart. They have an understanding of what Western media and the power that Western media yields or wields and the influence that they can have. The soldier, the footage there of the soldier that walked up, it seems, and put a round into, I didn't see any movement from the person until after. Obviously, saw the soldier shoot into that person, or I presume a person that was lying there. And then you see a leg move after. I don't know. I can't see, or I didn't see if the person was still alive. Like I said, you may have been looking to make sure that that person is completely out of this fight by putting rounds into him. So, whole bunch of context, man. If you're not on the ground, and hence why I've mentioned, hopefully the Defence Force is a bit smarter and wiser about who they decide to allow to go on jobs with them. I'd say just leave them out of it. They don't need to be there. If they want to be there at the front line, tell them to sign up, join the military, get the uniform on, boots on, go through basic core training, do the training, and then they can get their backside to the front line. Let's just go back and see if there was any movement before that soldier put rounds into the person there based on the footage. Let's have a look.
I was actually killed point blank in front of my camera.
It sounded like I heard the soldier say, yeah, he just blinked or something. So, again, for that, with regards to context, when he said, yeah, he just blinked, that soldier, this here, I'm not there, we weren't there on the ground, anybody watching this, but I'm just trying to give my take and perspective of what potentially could happen, having been on the ground, having been in contact, having been in situations where potentially you're not sure if somebody's still alive. So, in this context here, it appears, I heard what sounds like the soldier saying, yeah, he just blinked, and then he puts a round or a burst. I don't know if it's a burst or just a single round. It's a bit hard with the echoey sound inside the building that they're in. And then you see the leg move. He may have thought that was supposed to be a dead insurgent that they may have been fighting earlier or before or whatever, and was suspicious, maybe. And that this person, like I said before, back at the start of this video, could have been somebody, maybe he's got a grenade in his pocket. Maybe he's going to have one last ditched effort to pull the pin and blink and just go out with alhamdulillah and blink and chuck that thing and lob it towards the soldiers or whatever. Go out in a blaze of glory. I don't know. But the reality is this media guy doesn't know either. Like, they've just rocked back up to this place by the sounds of things and what he's seeing now. that could have been potentially, may not have been, but could have been somebody who may have been part of the fight from the day before, or may have been a fresh person who they tried to come in to get their people back. I don't know. There's a variety of different Lincoln scenarios that could be in relation to this particular scene. Again, we're not getting all the context or the background. We're not there. We're not hearing all the details of the conversations. And I wonder if this guy or if this piece interviews any of the soldiers or the media or the lieutenant that was in charge, I think, or the commander.
Capturing that image, Kevin discovers that this man is still alive.
Yeah, you were shot because you're a bloody retarded insurgent, you twat.
No, I know.
صوبت هناك وتكلمت معاكم عند التصوير البارحة أنا والمجموعة كلها وأعطيتكم معلومات. Please speak Arabic على مودي.
I don't speak Arabic.
I want to give you information.
Oh, now you can string some English words together and even make a good coherent sentence. I want to give you information. No doubt you want to give information. You want to talk about how badly you were treated after you just tried to kill and murder and ambush a bunch of American troops. Now you've lost that battle and you want to give information, more than likely, to try to make the American soldiers look bad.
The fate of this witness is unknown.
I felt at that moment, I wish I hadn't been there. I wish I hadn't been in that spot at that time, just because I knew the responsibility that I would have at that moment on.
The important part of this mission is...
Having been embedded with one particular Marine unit for 6 weeks, Kevin had become very close to the men. But things changed dramatically after the shooting.
Yeah, I mean, media are smart, man. Journalists, like, they're trying to make a name for themselves, right? I understand that. I know that that's what they're doing. They're trying to make a name for themselves. They're trying to become buddy-buddy. They tried to do it with us in the private security space when we were in and out of the Middle East. They're looking to try to sweet talk you almost and get to know you and find out what did you do and what sort of things are happening there and asking you questions that you just, your antennas up, like not only for potential threats in the area within which you're working, but also the mindset of journalists as a whole, mainstream media. Like, they seem to be, my experience, the vast majority, if not all of them, seem to be out for themselves, to make a name for themselves so that they can become that main anchor with the organization or the network that they're with. And they don't particularly care how they treat other people or who they need to step on in order to get there, and or what sort of stories they need to fabricate or feel like they need to fabricate in order to get to where they want to get to. It's it's quite rubbish, to be quite honest. So I imagine what they're going into, that the relationship was probably initially good, then they've caught on to, or maybe they've caught on to this guy, and maybe now they're distancing themselves. Who knows? I don't know. Let's see.
It was a really dark time. I had time after this incident where I was moved to the rear from the front lines. I had to leave my unit.
But the reaction from back home...
I had to leave my unit, like he was serving with the boys. Come on, man.
...was much worse. Kevin came under personal attack from the American public.
I spent my days pouring over thousands of hate mails and death threats every day. They were calling me a traitor, liberal media scumbag, hope that the next piece of video we see out of Iraq is your severed head on your back, hope some Marine frags you over there, hope the insurgents kill you.
There's that term frag. Apparently it's shooting, taking out your superiors or whatever. But yeah, I hadn't heard that term before, not during my time serving or anything like that. So yeah, it's interesting to hear him say that. I mean, that's the other thing I'll say too. I imagine, to their credit, media, to journalists' credit, as well as to politicians, probably cut from the same cloth, they must have and tend to seemingly have pretty thick skin, because they crack on like nothing's wrong, like they've done nothing wrong, and like they are doing everything in the best interest. But like I said, hopefully going forward, countries, if other conflicts and fighting and stuff starts, military are more smarter about who they choose to allow from mainstream media perspective, and just say, yeah, no thanks. We don't need you as the extra baggage to have to watch out for, to have to look after. We don't need you around there. That's my simplistic view of it.
Everything that you can possibly imagine. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. There were times where I really felt like I wanted to destroy that tape and not release it to the public.
No, you didn't, mate. You thought this videotape was going to make you look like a hero, and you only show portions and snippets of the footage, and that it's only you giving your take of what it is that you say happened. And you thought on the back end of that, people are going to love me for this, and I'm probably going to get some sort of promotion. That's what you were thinking. You weren't thinking about I should get rid of this. You're like that bloody twat in Australia, Andrew Hastie, that clown who thought by handing over secret tapes to the media against the Labour government, I think it was, that it was going to blink and somehow boost him up in the political rankings and standings with the people.
Controversy over Kevin's footage has fed into a growing debate about how the American media reports home from the war in Iraq. Kevin is showing these final year journalism students the difference between the raw footage he shot and the report that was actually put to air.
Brainwashing these final year journalism students. Where are the soldiers that apparently this guy said that he spoke to? Why not have them? Is there anybody that corroborates his story? And then have those people come, be there at this final presentation, so to speak. The commanders or the leaders, at least one of the leaders that he said that he spoke to. Yeah, just, again, mainstream media, very one-sided, just his version of events, and where we are expected, and people are expected to believe what it is that he's showing. And people will. No doubt millions of people will believe what this guy, Kevin Seitz, has shared, and they'll take it as gospel. And they'll say, because he was there, look, there's footage of him and stuff that he was there. He must have seen it. This must be true. People that have likely no idea of military in general, and or even how the media works with regards to their deception, the narratives that they want to push, the stories, the clicks, the likes, the, dare I say, the corruption that happens behind the scenes.
Probably have never seen this because I don't think it's even aired on American television, the full shooting.
With the war such a hot political issue, the American media has become very reluctant to criticize the actions of American soldiers.
Just minutes after the four-star general.
So even before Kevin received the hate mails, he and NBC knew the delicate tightrope they would have to tread. In the NBC report, Kevin went to great lengths to explain why the Marine might have pulled the trigger.
These U.S. Marines have had to fight for nearly every inch of ground taken in Fallujah. They've inflicted heavy casualties on insurgents here, but have also suffered many of their own, some from a new and harrowing tactic, booby-trapping dead bodies to explode when Marines come near.
Well, at least he did say that. Like, again, could be booby-trapping. It could be, like I was talking about, I didn't talk about booby-trapping earlier, but that is definitely legitimately a thing, as well as potentially having a grenade in their pocket, playing possum, like I mentioned, having a weapon and just having one last spray and pray that they hit somebody before they go. At least he's spoken about that.
We were diluting it every step of the way. A lot of the mitigating circumstances we had to say over and over again. You know, he got shot in the face. They booby-trapped bodies. In fact, we didn't start with the shooting at all. We talked about X, Y, and Z and backed into it.
At the same time,
Well, in this footage, you started with the shooting, and then you've gone back to pushing your narrative. That's what it seems to me, Mr. Kevin Seitz.
just a block away, one Marine was killed and 5 wounded by the booby-trapped body of a dead insurgent. So as dangerous as Iraq is, could the shooting be self-defense?
So hearing that and seeing that, it's not self-defense. It's blinking battlefield clearance to make sure that your enemy is either not booby-trapped in this scenario that they're talking about, and one that they're clearly showing there, whereby they lost one of their brothers to a booby-trapped body. And 2, to make sure that not only the booby-traps, that they're not holding any weapons, like I said, to blink and arc up before they go out. It's, it's not self-defense. It's just part of standard operating procedure going through and clearing the battlefield. It would be no different to ambushing an enemy. So your forces, special forces or conventional forces, doesn't matter, practicing your ambushing techniques, deliberate ambush. Just listen to those words. You're deliberately looking to ambush a known threat, an enemy, who may be just bumbling along the track or along the road, maybe minding their own business, thinking that they are safe in their area, and then you brass them up. You shoot them, you kill them, you execute them, however you want to describe it, and you take them out before, hopefully, anybody identifies you or before they have any time or chance to react and respond and to get accurate rounds back into your ambushing setup, either into your kill group, either into your cutoffs, all that sort of stuff. So just that's not self-defense. That's deliberate, planned. We're going to kill the enemy because we believe they may have intelligence. We're going to look to go grab that battlefield clearance. When you send a portion of your force through to start doing that sweep and to clear those bodies, the expectation is to put rounds into those bodies that may appear to not be moving before you look to search, frisk, grab whatever intelligence and stuff you can off them. It's not that those are just part of the SOPs. If people don't like that, well, too bad. Like that's part of the training that happens to try to ensure that A, you can get the intelligence that you need. Well, probably A, to ensure that your own troops can be safe first and that they can apply that to make sure that they're going to, or to give them a better chance of survival so that there isn't a booby trap or that they're not going to get brassed up because the person's pretending to be dead or hit or whatever. And so that they can then get the intelligence, which could shift and sway the future course of the battle or have another small win in another area, collecting valuable intelligence, identify other key players and or locations which may not have been known. The list goes on in terms of the potential upside when you're conducting tasks like that. But listening to this commentary, is it self-defense? No, it's not self-defense. It's Blinken making sure that a known threat that they've just been fighting for however long is dead and cannot do anything to them should they, whatever it is that they need to do next. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's just a whole bunch of other contexts. You could just talk about that for ages based on what we're seeing. Well, I could anyway, based on what we're seeing. And given that we're not hearing from any of the actual soldiers that were on the ground, we're only hearing from this one journalist.
And, that was a conscious effort, basically because we felt like we were going to take such fire on this story.
Some people might think that you defended the Marine too much in your report.
I think that people could make that argument. They could say that the mitigating circumstances were presented in such a strong, forthright way that perhaps, the incident that happened didn't get proper play.
Marine squad has already been in here and shot the wounded.
Well, I mean, if that's the case again, like your job there is supposedly neutral reporting, I presume, unbiased, dare I say? We know that's a crock. Why would you look to, if you feel like something's wrong, why would you then look to try to report from a mitigative perspective if those mitigating things weren't true and accurate? Booby trapping bodies is a thing. People playing possum is a thing. Like a whole bunch of reasons, rationales, and things that would have been happening on the front line that I presume this guy would have seen some of because he was so heavily embedded with troops that were literally on the front line, fighting towards, and like he said in his own words, fighting for every inch in those particular areas where they were fighting.
Men, again.
In the middle of all this media management and political controversy, the real debate appears to have been lost.
Do you think that because of a paranoia to tell both sides of the stories and to explain everything and to make sure you're not accused of being biased, do you think that you can sometimes lose the truth?
That you're not accused of being biased. Like I just said earlier, supposedly supposed to be unbiased, neutral, tell both sides of the story, which this young lady has just said. Thinking what a crock that is.
I think that the truth can become muddied in that process. I think it can become fairly foggy.
Despite evidence of what appears to be a war crime, the tape hasn't provoked a much...
This young girl talking here, what appears to be a war crime. Again, just the wording used by media to shift the narrative, to really get upstairs with people that have no idea, literally have no idea. They're probably the sort of people that watch fictional movies and think that those things are true. It's rubbish what what mainstream media does. It doesn't have the appearance of a war crime. If a person has got half a brain or has any idea in terms of what it's like out on the ground or serving in the military in general. But the media have a knack of being able to deliver that narrative so that it looks and sounds and eventually feels like that to a person watching.
Greater soul searching about acceptable rules of engagement for the US military.
Are these the kind of rules of engagement we use?
And why are you pausing on this guy? You've already spoken about we don't know what happened to this guy. Well, do you know what happened to the troops that were there? Has anybody spoken to them? Have you looked to get a story from them? Maybe this young lady's going to talk about that and maybe have a screenshot saying that we reached out to such and such battalion or unit for comment, but were denied or whatever. Maybe that's what's going to show up at the end.
And if so, we should be very open about it. Are we willing to live with the fact that they may do the same thing to U.S. soldiers and U.S. Marines, and potentially those kind of...
They'll do that not only to US soldiers and Marines and coalition, but they'll do that to journalists too. They will slaughter and murder journalists as well. They'll look to leverage them and utilize them as much as they can. If you are then not worth the effort and nothing is happening for it, well then, see you later, bros.
The rules of engagement, will they lead to other repercussions for us in society? Will they create more terrorist acts because people feel that we're behaving unnecessarily violent or barbaric, in war?
Bloody hell, this twit. No, I don't think so, personally, based on the comments that he shared. You're going into an environment where war is violence, and there's a lot of violence. And if you're not ready to meet that level of violence, up to a point, right? Like as Western cultures and soldiers and training and stuff clearly runs us through and takes us through. But you have to be willing to go in there understanding that you're going to be facing violent people who are very upset, angry, etc. And if you're not willing to meet that and exceed that at times in order to win the firefight, to regain the initiative, to either force your enemy to surrender or take them out if they continue to keep fighting because for them they are not surrendering, then don't join and or don't go on these tasks with the military. And the military, just stop sending mainstream media out on these jobs. They're just, it's extra work to have to, the soldiers will be looking out for, trying to look after the cameraman, the correspondent, the soundman, if they've got a person there. So 2 or 3 people, extra people who are non-combatants that you've got to babysit and be mindful of when you're maneuvering and looking to regain ground or take hold of ground and or fight a very determined, violent, committed enemy. It's just a waste of time having the media there. They're not reporting, like I said, they're not reporting any of the good stories that take place about what their soldiers do. They're only showing and only seemingly appearing to show and want to show what looks it seems like they're just looking for war crime or excuses to report something that makes their military look bad. Yeah. Well, that's it for that part. Nothing else on there. Oh, hang on. Let me just play this in case there is a pop-up. In case, like I said, in case maybe they asked military for their take instead of just listening to this twat side. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, no. Nothing on there. Nothing that popped up showing that that they had reached out to or tried to speak with any military. So we'll jump into the article next. Let me stop sharing this. All right. And here we are with regards to the article that was sent to me to include as part of this reaction. So Marine cleared in videotaped shooting. Wounded Iraqi killed inside Fallujah mosque. So this must be in relation to the video that I've just reacted to and given my 2 cents on. From Jamie McIntyre, CNN, Thursday, May 5th, 2005. Okay. So Washington, CNN, Navy investigators have determined a U.S. Marine acted in self-defense when he shot and apparently wounded an unarmed Iraqi inside a Fallujah mosque in November, a senior Pentagon official said Wednesday. Okay, well, Navy investigators have deemed it to be self-defense. Maybe when I heard the comment, I think he said, yeah, he blinked or something. I don't know. They've obviously done an investigation and found that he's not guilty and that it's self-defense. The Marine corporal, who will not face charges, was under investigation in the shootings of 4 enemy combatants as part of an operation during the siege of Fallujah on November 13th, 2004. So when was this done? May 2005. Okay. November, December, January, February, March, April, May. 6 months. The mosque shooting was captured on videotape by an embedded reporter. An investigation by the Naval Criminal Investigation Service, NCIS, just like the TV show, determined that the Marine acted in self-defense within military law and the law of armed conflict. Although that Marine has been cleared of wrongdoing, the investigation remains open because autopsies of some of the bodies found in the mosque turned up bullets that were not found, that were not from his gun. Okay. The incident occurred during house-to-house fighting in southern Fallujah, less than a week after US-led forces launched an offensive to rout insurgents from the rest of Iraqi city. The corporal said in a sworn statement that he opened fire at the people because he thought they were a threat to the Marines in the mosque, according to a military news release. Okay, so he thought that they were a threat, so he dropped them. They were already down. He made sure that they weren't going to be no longer present a threat. The investigators who considered the facts of the incident agreed. There you go. The investigators from NCIS who considered the facts of the incident, they agreed. The evidence indicates that based on the actions of those AIF, anti-Iraqi forces, the corporal reasonably believed that they posed a hostile threat to him and his fellow Marines and justifiably fired in self-defense. Okay. The enhanced videotape of the shooting supports the corporal's claim that the wounded anti-Iraqi forces was concealing his left arm behind his head, the Marine said in a statement. Okay, cool. So enhanced footage supports the corporal's claim. So like I said, and I don't know if this is the case in this particular mosque shooting, but obviously the soldier has been cleared. I've spoken about, you are on edge in any situation like that because you don't know. They're hiding their arms. Are they lying down with their last-ditch effort? They've got a grenade and they've pulled the pin already and they're just holding onto it, waiting to be turned over to then release it. It's still going to have a few seconds fuse, but depending on the type. But you know what I mean? Or are they holding a pistol that they've managed to conceal and pull out and waiting to be turned over, and then they're just going to spray and shoot as many rounds as they can to try to take out one more person if they can, if they haven't already taken out others. This footage sounds like enhanced footage is in support of the corporal's claim, concealing the left arm, it says, behind the head. The report said that while it isn't clear whether insurgents in the videotape made any overtly threatening gestures, it is clear that the Marines were aware that feigning death was a common enemy tactic, which I've spoken about throughout this video so far. Accordingly, it was reasonable to believe that the corporal fired on the AIF after reasonably believing that the individual was committing a hostile act by feigning death and subsequently moving his concealed arm. Sounds reasonable enough to me. Investigators weighed multiple witness accounts, close review of video showing the incident captured by an embedded reporter, and the review of detailed ballistics and forensic evidence. And here, as you look at this, there's this investigation sounds like it's still open from that part that I just read earlier, because they found rounds in bodies which didn't come from the US, I assume the US soldier's weapon. But here's some interesting stuff. There's detailed ballistics and forensic evidence as well, plus multiple witness accounts. So again, the video that I was just reacting to was just showing one journalist who's likely got his own agenda for fame and stardom or whatever it might be. And so he's got a vested interest in trying to get his story across in the way that he wants it to be delivered and received by people listening to it. Where are we? The incident was recorded by a television journalist embedded with the Marines. The Iraqi was among several wounded men found in a mosque that Marines said had been the source of small arms and rocket-propelled grenade fire the previous day. The Marine approached one of them against a wall saying, "He's expletive faking he's dead. He's faking he's expletive dead." The Marine raised his rifle and fired at least one shot into the wounded man, at which point a companion said, "Well, he's dead now." Again, if that's deemed self-defense, so be it. To me, it's just part of standard operating procedures in terms of clearing those who these guys have been in combat fighting literally for their lives, to make sure that enemy isn't going to get up to any good now that they've been overrun or overwhelmed and or that they've lost that particular battle. When told on the tape by the reporter that the men were among those wounded in an earlier firefight at the mosque, the Marine who fired the shot said, "I didn't know, sir. I didn't know." Okay, so look, that's even more context to it. When told on the tape by the reporter that the men were among those wounded in an earlier firefight at the mosque, so told on tape by the reporter? What's the reporter doing telling the Marine about what's taken place? Why is there not another Marine? Why isn't the journalist saying that another Marine or leader or commander of the same unit told the Marine that? Why is it when told on the tape by the reporter that the men were among those wounded in an earlier firefight at the mosque, the Marine who fired the shot said, "I didn't know, sir, I didn't know"? So is that "I didn't know" because he wasn't part of that group? Could be. Could have been a different soldier or a group of different soldiers that were there. The footage that we saw showed Marines going back to the mosque, which I assume they were the soldiers that were there the day before, and obviously they met up with other US Marines in there. I don't think I heard them say whether or not those Marines were part of that group that were there yesterday. So again, that throws another important contextual piece to this, because if they are a different group of US Marines who weren't part of the group that were there yesterday, well, then it would stand to reason they've come in there, maybe they've stumbled upon this group of people and going, "What the hell's going on here?" and carried out whatever actions they thought necessary at that time. The pretending to be dead or whatever. At the time, US commanders said they were concerned the video might encourage more insurgents to fight to the death rather than surrender. The Iraqis who watched, so at the time, US commanders said they were concerned the video might encourage more insurgents to fight to the death rather than surrender. I mean, those commanders, I don't know who they are. Maybe they should have had them. Maybe this journalist should have had him on their video. Those commanders, if they are thinking that you're going to invade another country and that you are just going to waltz on in and everybody's going to surrender, they need their heads read. Right? Like, people, regardless of which country they come from, patriotism aside, like, don't get me wrong, I've seen some people that obviously clearly were not prepared to die, clearly were not prepared to fight to the death, even though the looks on their faces when they did capitulate and surrender to us looked like they just looked at us with blinking disgust. There didn't appear to be any fear in the eyes of the people that I looked at, the men that I looked at. During that contact, when we basically won that firefight, essentially, they just looked at us like they wanted us dead. But they did surrender. But there will be people in conflict who are just prepared to risk everything. Just as there will be soldiers on the coalition side or Western forces that are prepared to risk everything as well. Not for glory, but for their brothers and the people that they're with. And dare I say at times, potentially for the success of the mission. For this US commander to say they were concerned the video might encourage more insurgents to fight to the death rather than surrender, I don't know about that. I think it's like the Tyson's comment, everybody's got to play until they get punched in the face. Some of those men, including myself when I was serving, likely had the thought that I'm like I'm not being taken. I did have that thought for me personally. I'm not being taken hostage. Would that have happened when the rubber, if the rubber met the road at that point? Would I have continued fighting until the very end, until I got blasted and then couldn't be taken hostage? Don't know. Thankfully, it didn't happen. But that was part of my mindset, and I know it was part of the mindset of some of the guys that I was serving and working with as well. Thankfully, thankfully for me and for those that I was serving with, we didn't have to. We didn't get to that stage where we needed to find out if that was going to be the case, because we got the upper hand, So anyway, where am I up to? Fights rather than surrender. And Iraqis who watched the scene on television said they were stunned. Well, said they were stunned. Yeah, okay. That doesn't mean anything if they're stunned. Anybody, like, there'd probably be a lot of people that would be stunned, especially if they have no military context or understanding around it, based on some of the stuff that I've tried to speak about, based on what we saw in the video itself of what the reporter himself was reporting about the booby trapping bodies and all that sort of stuff to try to take out other coalition forces, or US forces in this case, when they go in to do their clearances. The Marine seen on the videotape was part of a squad from the 3rd Battalion, 1st Marine Regiment. And that's it. So anyway, I've given my take on this paid reaction for this particular video and article. Right or wrong, those are my thoughts. I prefer to just do the reactions to video footage and articles without going through them. Most of the reactions that I do are quite long anyway, so I don't want to sit down and watch something for a few hours and then go back to the start and then do a reaction to it as if I'm reacting to it for the first time. So it's just easier for me to react to things for the first time. What I say in those moments is what I say. I'll try to give my explanation and rationale or context or thoughts in and around why I'm sharing what I'm sharing. People will either agree or disagree or whatever. But if you're here for my reaction, you've got it. Thank you to the person that sent through the funds in terms of payment for this reaction. Those are my thoughts on it. And appreciate anybody's time that's spent here. Feel free to whack your thoughts in the comments, whether you disagree. I don't block comments. Feel free to whack them in. So have your say in that as well, based on what it is that you've seen, based on this article, if you've read through it with me as we've gone through. And comment away if you like. Until then, you'll see me on the next video. Look after yourselves. Take care. And we'll see you on the next one.